Coming up next, we have a wonderful speaker. I'm really, really interested to listen to this amazing talk. Her name is Isabel Castro, and she'll be talking about the Kiwi birds, the symbol of New Zealand. They're lovely birds, and I cannot wait to hear her stories and the work that she's doing with the Kiwi. But before that, if you have time, do check out prints for conservation on our website. That's right. We will be selling prints donated by various photographers to raise funds for various charities and NGOs affiliated with conservation. As you know, Global Biodiversity Festival is a not-for-profit festival, not-for-profit event. So any funds raised, you can go to the website as well to donate, and you can be rest assured that your donation would be of great help to many conservation projects around the world. Let me just play you a little sizzler from one of our sponsors, Lenovo EDU. Welcome back, everybody, to the Global Biodiversity Festival 2021. So we started today. Today's the first day of the festival. We've been literally all around the world. We started in the Philippines. Then we headed off to the UK, then to Chile, to Pakistan, to New Zealand, to Africa, to Sabah, to Australia, and we're taking a short detour to New Zealand. Please help me welcome our next speaker coming up, Isabel Castro. Hi, Isabel. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you.
All right. So how have things been in New Zealand so far?
Oh, it's been really good. We've had really good time with the pandemic because we really haven't had it very much. So it's been, for us, it's been really good. For our wildlife, it's been really good as well. Because despite not having the pandemic, we still have had a lot of time off. So wildlife is happy.
That's really good news. And I pray that, New Zealand stays safe and, doesn't have to go through the experience the rest of the world is currently going through at the moment.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. All right, Isabel, the floor is all yours. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I want to share with you my my screen now. Peter, if you can share my screen because I don't seem to be able to do that. Okay, so let's see if I can share my screen again.
Right, is this the one that
Not that one, thanks. Just I don't know why I cannot share. Okay, yeah, I think I got it. There we are. I just shared the wrong thing.
Okay.
No worries.
Okay, you're good to go.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Anyways, I want to share everyone who's here listening to my presentation. As Peter already said, my name is Isabel Castro and I work at Massey University in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And today I thought that I would like to introduce you to a very weird and fantastic group of birds that collectively are called the Kiwi, and they only exist here in this country. I have had the pleasure of working with these species and to study them for the last 22 years. But before I can talk to you about the Kiwi, I need to talk to you about our country and how this country came to be, because that explains what the Kiwi and why the Kiwi are here and why the Kiwi are so strange. So the landmass that was to become Aotearoa New Zealand split away from the supercontinent Gondwana land. So here is New Zealand separating about 80 million years ago. And from about 55 million years ago, the gap between New Zealand and the rest of the masses that form the land was at least 2,000 kilometers. So that's a really big distance. And any plants and animals that have arrived in New Zealand since its separation would have had to cross such a huge body of water. Now, Aotearoa New Zealand separated, as I said, 80 million years ago, and then was the Cretaceous period, when dinosaurs and birds were dominating the earth. And therefore, most of the vertebrates that are represented in New Zealand are the animals that were existing in those times. And New Zealand, of course, has a lot of birds and a lot of reptiles. But for example, it doesn't have many mammals. Indeed, New Zealand only has three species of bats. Today, we only have two of those, and we don't have any other land mammals. And what this means is that our animals that live in the terrestrial ecosystems in the land, they don't have any evolved behaviors that consider mammals. For example, our birds don't react to mammalian predators like cats or stoats, and they are therefore very easy prey for them. Because our birds evolve in the absence of predatory mammals, which hunt on the ground at night, they are often flightless and they are also nocturnal. So now that you have some background, I can talk to you a little bit about the kiwi. So what makes a kiwi a relict is that Kiwi family branch separated in the family tree of birds down here, about 85 million years ago. And most of the other birds that have appeared on Earth that are existent today, they separated around in this time in here, around 70 million years ago. So the group as a whole, which is called the Paleognatha, is a very, very old group, a relict of that past. And Kiwi ancestors walked the earth around the same time as New Zealand was separating from Gondwana land, those 80 million years ago that I just told you about. So in this picture here, we can have a closer look at this group of the Paleognatha. One thing that is pretty incredible about this group is that if you look at the species that you have here, they are all birds that don't fly or are not very good flyers. They are also super big birds, like the ostriches and the moa. And another surprise that comes out in this tree is that the kiwi, which is down in here, its closest relative, is actually the largest of all of those birds, the elephant bird from Madagascar, which is now extinct. And one thing that we know today is that Kiwi ancestors arrived to Aotearoa, New Zealand, flying, and they lost the ability to fly once they arrived in our continent. So today, we recognize 5 species of kiwi. The brown kiwi, this is the species that I work a lot with, the rowi, the tokoeka, which I also work with, the roroa, and the kiwi puku. They all look very much alike, as you can see. They have a rounded body, long bills, and strong legs. They're all mostly nocturnal, even though the tokoeka that lives on Stewart Island has a more flexible timetable and can be found active at any time of the day or night. Now, the weirdness of kiwi. One of the reasons, the name kiwi, the word kiwi, the scientific name of the kiwi, the apteryx, means without a wing. And one of the reasons why the shape of the kiwi is so rounded is because the kiwi has very, 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 very tiny wings that are vestigial. They cannot use them for very much at all. But kiwi still puts his head down in the direction of the wings, as if it was trying to hide the head under the wings like birds do when they sleep. So the other interesting curiosity is that at the end of the tiny wing, kiwi still has a nail that resembles and reminds you of the primitive birds. Kiwi feathers are also quite interesting. They look more like hair than feathers because they have no barbules or hooks between the barbs of the feather. So if you consider that the feathers look like hair and the kiwi are a quite smallish size, it gives kiwi a little bit of a mammalian appearance that many people have mentioned in the different books that have been published about kiwi. Now, another interesting thing about kiwi that makes them quite odd is that kiwi sexes look and behave the opposite of what you would expect in other bird species. For example, kiwi females are the larger sex, and the males are doing a lot of the incubation. And kiwi reproduction is another interesting thing. Kiwi hold the world record in terms of the size of the egg, which is one of the largest eggs in proportion of the female body size. And here is the tokoeka skeleton with her egg inside the abdomen. Also, the kiwi egg has the richest egg yolk of any egg so far measured. And when the kiwi chick hatches, here it is, It is the most developed of all chicks in all birds, and is just a little tiny example of an adult bird, and is capable of complete independence from mom and dad after just a few days of hatching. Now, other things that are interesting about kiwi is that kiwi have these tiny, tiny little eyes. As a matter of fact, the kiwi eyes are the smallest eyes of any bird in the world. And the the measurements that have been taken show that probably they can see just as bad as we do at night. So I just told you they're nocturnal before. So what do they do? What kind of senses do they use to navigate and do all the things that they do as a normal animal does when they are awake? So the first sense that I wanted to talk to you about is kiwi olfaction. This is a sense that I had a lot to do because I studied it with my team. And kiwi olfaction, let me tell you, is awesome. Kiwi has a very well-developed sense of smell with large areas of the brain and the face that are involved in this sense. They also have nostrils that are located at the end of the bill here. You can see them clearly in there. And this allows them to get closer to the sources of smell, just like most mammals do, like dogs, for example. And a very important observation is that smell is a sense that can be used at night. In addition to this sense of smell, our team has also found that kiwi uses their long bill to probe food for food in the litter and in the soil of the forest. And we found that in addition of using the sense of smell to find that food, they also have a sense that is called remote touch that allows them to feel the vibrations made by prey 2 or so centimeters underground and help them localize the food. And this is another good news, is that this sense can also be used at night. So what I tell people is that kiwi have a very, very smart bill. Now, why is kiwi this weird? Why do kiwi have such weird senses and weird things, ways of do things? Well, kiwi has adaptations that allow them to do their job in the forest. Or as biologists say, there are adaptations that allow kiwi to fulfill their ecological niche. And a niche is a job, and kiwi have a unique job for a bird. They are nocturnal ground insectivores. This is another oddity for a bird because once mammals took over the world after the dinosaurs became extinct, birds took to fly and no longer spend so much time on the ground. Mammals then took over the job of a nocturnal ground insectivore. And today, many rodents, hedgehogs, and other mammal species do this job in other areas of the world. But in New Zealand, kiwi still does it. So today, Aotearoa New Zealand still lays very isolated from other land masses, being 4,000 kilometers away from Australia, 7,000 kilometers from Antarctica, and 12,000 kilometers from South America. So today it's even harder for other species to arrive unaided to New Zealand. And in sum, New Zealand is a small piece of land in the middle of the ocean and is separated from other land masses by immense distances. But despite this isolation, Aotearoa New Zealand has one of the highest numbers of endangered species in the world. This is a sad thing, but why do we have them? Well, this brings us to the second part of the talk, and you can probably guess what the problem we have in New Zealand is. Humans. The first humans in New Zealand were the Māori that arrived about 1,300 years ago. Europeans arrived much later, and since the arrival of James Cook, the third trip of James Cook, in 1769, people started to invade New Zealand and to live here, the European people. Now, the biggest changes that occurred after humans arrived is the amount of deforestation that took place. So in this picture, you can see how the land changed from 700 AD to the 1980s. And by the end of the 1980s, we only had 23% of the forest cover that once we had. And together with the arrival of people, they brought with them hundreds of plants and animals that came from Europe. And amongst those, and particularly bad for New Zealand, have been many species of herbivores. And arguably the worst thing that humans could have done is that they brought a whole lot of mammalian predators. Now, 3 species of rat, sheep, black and Norway, sheep and Norway and Kiore, 3 masculine species, ferrets, toads and weasels, and cats and dogs were brought in. And those are the worst enemies that kiwi can have. The mustelids, the cats and the dogs, are actually the predators that kill them, and the rats compete for food with them. And Because of that, because they affect other species as well, Aotearoa New Zealand's conservation is mostly based around controlling these pests. So let's get back to kiwi. This picture here shows you the distribution that kiwi had before the human arrival. And you can see that each of the colors represents a different species, and that species were distributed quite widely around New Zealand. Now, this picture over here shows you the current distribution of kiwi. So you can see that the distribution has shrunk, and one species, the species that is here in blue, is actually completely gone from the mainland of New Zealand, and we only have small snippets of populations on islands that are protected against predators. So the situation gets worse when you actually look in a more detail at each one of those little pieces. So for example, we're going to have a look at here, this piece in here that is Northland, because that's where I work. So when you look at Northland in detail, this is the picture of Northland, you can see that in red are the kiwis, are the areas where kiwi is present in some numbers. So you can see them in here, and the rest of them are areas where kiwi are probably gone, or if they're there, they're in small little numbers. So this is a sad picture that we have in here for these wonderful birds. But I have to say, not all is lost. New Zealanders who call themselves Kiwis in recognition of this wonderful bird care about kiwi, the bird, and particularly one group of Kiwis have been working very hard to keep these birds safe for the future. These pictures show you part of my team, and this is a team that for the last 7 years have been working with me, and they are members of a subtribe, Maori subtribe called Natikuta and Te Patukeha, and they have been helping kiwi survive into the future. Now, who are these people? Well, these people are Maori people, and there are a subtribe. There are two subtribes of the largest iwi in Aotearoa, New Zealand, the Napuhi Nation. Maori were the first inhabitants of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and they have lived in the country for over 1,000 years, and 1,000 years before Europeans arrived. So during this time, they learned a huge amount of ecological knowledge, and they believed in a strong connection between all living and non-living creatures. Their experts, who were called taonga, held incredible biological knowledge. Unfortunately, in 1907, an act of parliament in New Zealand suppressed their practices, and this resulted in some loss of knowledge, but also in a widespread secrecy about their knowledge, and that's what we're still living today. Luckily, the Maori signed an agreement with the British Crown that was called the Treaty of Waitangi in English, or the Te Tiriti o Waitangi in the language of the Maori. And although there has been much controversy with the treaty having several meanings, depending whether you read it in English or in Te Reo Maori, the gist of the document is that Maori and British would manage the natural resources of Aotearoa New Zealand together. This is something that the Maori call kaitiakitanga, which means caring for the resources, taking care of them. This has not happened yet, as the government of the time and until today did not follow their word that was written in that contract, in that treaty. But Maori have battled incessantly since the moment of the signature of the treaty, and today they're closer than ever to bring to life this treaty. Natikuta and Te Patukeha had a long way in playing the role of caring for the environment, with very many projects that protect the animals and plants that they have in their area. And one of such projects is the Kiwi Whakapapa project that examines the genetics of the kiwi in Northland to prepare a management plan that considers genetic diversity. Natikuta and Te Patukeha are working with my research team, as well as many other Maori groups that you can see written in there, to prepare this management plan and to ensure the kiwi population thrives in the years to come. And then this is the last thing that I wanted to tell you. But before I finish my presentation, I would like you to watch, because I don't want to have the last word. I want the kiwi to have the last word. So I wanted to show you a video. And please, Peter, if you could play my video, that would be fantastic. I think I can. I don't know if I'm sharing my video in there. I hope I am. Okay. And this is the end of my presentation. I just wanted to thank all of the people that have helped me throughout the years, because even though I'm talking to you and I'm telling these wonderful things to you, you cannot do conservation by yourself. So I talk for them, I talk for everyone, but they are here in the back holding me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabel. What a treat that was to learn so much about the kiwi that I myself didn't know, and what a truly magical bird, it is for New Zealand to have.
Indeed.
Yes. Well, I have a question for you. I followed your presentation with much interest, and you did mention that the kiwi chick, upon hatching, is actually the most developed chick in all of bird species.
Yes.
How long is the incubation period actually for a kiwi?
Yeah, the incubation period for the kiwi varies a little bit between the species, but is between 80 and 90 days.
Wow, that is that is serious time commitment.
It is a serious time commitment, and it's a commitment that is mostly by the male. So in different kiwi species have different mating systems. Some of them nest in groups, and some of them nest only as a pair. And in the brown kiwi, which is the species that I've been working with for the longest time, the male is the only incubator. So the female comes and lays an egg, and she goes away, and the male sits on this egg for 80 to 90 days until these chicks hatch. And then once the chicks hatch, he broods them for about 4 or 5 days, and then the chicks go away. And he's free to start another nest or to do something else.
Wow, that is really a long-term commitment.
Yeah, definitely.
So does the male also build the nest, or is it an activity which the male and the female participate in together?
Okay, so this is something that still we need to learn more about. But I have seen both the male and the female put in nesting material, because one of the things that is also interesting about the kiwi that is different from other members of the Paleognatha, from the ostrich and the cassowaries and so on, is that actually kiwi makes a nest. They nest in burrows, and they put a lot of nesting material inside. And both the male and the female bring nesting material in there. And some kiwi would nest in a burrow that they themselves dig, and some kiwi will nest in a tree hole or another hole that has been open for other reasons. Like often, in the creeks, there might be, spaces that have been left from the water passing and stuff like that. So they can go into places like that as well, as far as they are dry. So
Wow,
both of them, I think both of them participate one way or the other.
that's really interesting and good to know that that he has help.
Yes, it does. A little help.
Every little bit of help goes a long way.
I actually have to tell you something. The female kiwi are really grumpy. And I've seen many females will meet when they have a nest with the male. The male is always the incubator, but every now and then she comes and has a look at what's going on. So we have video cameras in front of the nest, and often what you can see is that the female comes to check what the male is doing, and the male might be very cute, putting some material on the nest and things like that, and the female arrives and beats them, kicks them on the head, chases them away, and you never know why they're doing this, but it's very funny.
Quality control by the missus. Very, very important. You also mentioned that one of the great threats that the kiwi faces today is a result of the introduction of mammalian predators brought over by European immigrants.
That's right.
So, of course, today there are domestic cats, domestic dogs, rats that were introduced, stoats. So, what are the steps being taken now by New Zealand to control these predators?
Well, New Zealand does quite a few things. One of the things, mostly, it revolves around killing them. So this brings up another layer of problems because you have to think about the welfare of these species, and even though they're introduced and they're negative, they also have a welfare that we need to care for. So New Zealand is an expert on getting rid of these unwanted pests in ways that are quite, I guess, they consider the welfare of these species. And at the moment, for example, we have this major undertaking, which is called Predator Free New Zealand 2050, which is an attempt to get rid of stoats, rats, and possums by the year 2050, all over Aotearoa New Zealand. So this is a major thing, and we will have to use a lot of trapping and poisoning and a lot of ingenuity in order to get this thing done.
And how is that going on so far?
Well, I mean, if anyone can do this, it'll be the Kiwis. There is a lot of, there is a few projects now that are, what they're doing first is they're separating peninsulas where they can actually do a rolling front of pest control so that they eradicate the pests in a small area and then join adjacent or so on areas so that slowly you get rid of these pests. And in the meantime, they have many projects that look at issues that come along. For example, how do you know when you have killed the last pest? How do you know that there is no one hiding away, waiting for something to happen? What happens to mice when you get rid of all the rats and the cats and the stoats? Those sorts of things.
Yes, mice are rather sneaky. very, very hard to totally eradicate.
Indeed.
Okay, and another question that I have for you. Before I get to my question, someone has popped up a question in the chat.
Oh, great.
So this is from Yokmui Liu. As the kiwi is flightless and with increasing forest fragmentation, how serious is the issue of inbreeding and low genetic diversity affecting kiwi population?
Yeah, this is a very good question. And as I show you in the last part of our talk, Natikuta and Patukeha and us are working really hard to be able to answer this question. So far, we have worked in Northland, and we have a couple of populations outside Northland that we have examined. And the genetic diversity overall of all of these kiwi populations is relatively low. So we're starting from a situation of lower diversity than we expected, at least that I expected, for some of these populations, which are supposed to have, not a very tremendously bad history of bottlenecks or something like that. So hopefully, what we are seeing from the studies that we are examining is that if you, for whatever reason, mixed populations that are quite far apart with each other, that you actually have better genetics in terms of diversity, in any measure of diversity that we have looked at, than if you have used birds from a single source. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're analyzing our data a little bit more to make sure that we don't give advice that is not as good. But it looks like the advice is going to be mix your populations because that is going to increase your genetic diversity. So I think that's the way that we might go.
Yes, we have to always take into account also the sustainability of the next generation, making sure that we have sufficient genetic diversity. I have a question for you, actually, which really this interested me a lot when you brought it up. Kiwi olfaction.
Yes,
That's really, really peculiar.
it is.
Do any other bird species possess that same trait or characteristic, to your knowledge, or
Yes.
is it solely a Kiwi trait?
No, it's not just the Kiwi trait. No, there is a group of birds that are called, the common name of the birds are petrels and albatrosses, and they have a really, really big nose that you can see, your tube nose. They're called tube noses for that reason. And those birds also have a really well-developed sense of smell that we know quite a lot about. And they can recognize individuals with this sense of smell. They can find the food in the ocean at distances of 12,000, even 20,000 kilometers, etc. So they also have a really good sense of smell. But even your pigeon, your common pigeon that you have that you use for sending messages between people, etc., they can also smell really well, and they can recognize the smell of the area where they live. If you make them choose, they can smell and if you, for example, prevent them from using certain types of navigation tools, they will use the sense of smell to find home.
That's really, really fascinating and something I did not know. So thank you so much, Isabel, for enlightening me. This is really incredible. All right. If people would like to help out with the cause of the kiwi, is there any website that they can visit? Or
yes, they can look for my name and find my MASI website, and they can then, in there, I have information about our project and how they can donate money if they want to, how they can help us. We don't really want money we want money to get transmitters so we can monitor the birds. So that's basically what we do. So we have a list of all of our birds and how people can help with that.
Oh, fantastic. Can you just read out to me your website, and I'll put it on a banner so that people can take it down?
Okay, so let me get you my website name. It is www.masi.ac.nz/behavior-conservation-group.
All right. So here we are. I hope this is correct. www.mercy.ac.nz.
No, MASSEY. MASSEY.
MASSAY.
All right. MASSEY.
Okay,
MASSEY.
MASSAY.
EY.
Okay, AY. Okay, let's hope I get this correct the second time round. Good thing this is all
That's wonderful. Oh no, with an E. SSEY. Not AY.
SSEY. Okay, third time's the charm, ladies and gentlemen. Third time's the charm. So here we go. Good thing it's all
wonderful.
Yes, www.massey.ac.nz/behavior conservation group. So there you go. This is the website that you can check out, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are still with us here at the Global Biodiversity Festival 2021. If you'd like to make a contribution to help with the kiwi, please
or ask any questions.
Or ask any further questions, please do check out this website. Isabel is a wonderful, warm person to talk to, and she knows all about the kiwi, including their wonderful sense of smell, which I never knew anything about. Before you go, Isabel, I have one last question, if I may. Could you tell me more about what it is that because earlier in your presentation, you mentioned that you had a lot of help with the Ngati Kuta and the Patukeha people to help with the kiwi conservation program. Can you maybe tell me a little bit more about how their involvement, as well as how did you go about getting them to be involved?
Well, actually, they asked me to be involved. I was giving advice because I work with Kiwi and I belong to the Kiwi Recovery Group. I was asked for advice on what to do with the birds in Northland. And they came to this meeting. And when we were in the meeting, they asked me to be part of the work that I was doing and to work with me towards getting this genetic project going. So it was their interest and their request that I work with them. So that's how it all started. And they, one of the things that we agreed on is that from the beginning, they should be part of every aspect of the study. So they are involved in data collecting, first of all, in deciding what to do, then in the data collecting. So I trained members of the Hapu. I have now trained 12 people from the Hapu to do Kiwi work. The youngest one was 7 when he started. Is in one of my pictures in there. He's now 15 and he's the youngest Kiwi practitioner in New Zealand. And so we started from training them to do that. And now we also have one of them is doing their PhD with us, doing some of the genetic side of things. And we have our team that works with them. It actually has all the members have some linkages with Māori. So it's just been an incredible journey to do that with them. And one of the things is that I am really learning heaps about the knowledge that Māori had about Kiwi and other birds and about New Zealand and about the ecology of this beautiful place. And we are applying that to our research. So it's been an amazing marriage between them and us, and a lot of respect as well. So it's been really, really good.
Wow, and it's so wonderful to see, local communities getting together behind the cause of protecting local wildlife and also local biodiversity.
Yes.
And with that, thank you so much for your time, Isabel. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and stay safe.
Thank you, Peter. You too.